When the concierge at the five-star oceanfront resort handed over 4-room keys, my sister smirked, turned to me and said, "We reserved rooms for me, my husband, and mom and dad. We're the real family. You can just find a motel down the highway." My parents stayed dead silent, staring at the marble floor as if I were a stranger who'd crashed their luxury vacation. I had paid for the entire deposit weeks in advance, but they didn't know that. I didn't scream, and I didn't shed a single tear. I just turned around, walked out into the tropical heat, and ignored their dozens of frantic calls as night fell. They thought they had humiliated me and pushed me into a corner. But 3 weeks later, when an unexpected legal notice arrived at their front door and wiped the smug smiles clean off their faces, they finally realized who actually held all the power. My name is Sophie, I'm 35 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I was the reliable cash cow of my family. The marble floor of the grand lobby glistened under massive crystal chandeliers, and the warm ocean breeze carried the scent of hibiscus through the open glass doors. It was supposed to be a dream getaway, a tropical escape to celebrate my parents' 40th wedding anniversary. I stood near the reception counter with 2 heavy leather suitcases, wiping a bead of sweat from my forehead, feeling a subtle mix of exhaustion and excitement after an 8-hour flight. My younger sister, Chloe, glided up to the desk first, her designer sunglasses perched effortlessly on top of her head. Beside her stood her husband, Greg, who looked completely indifferent, and our parents, who were already marveling at the ocean view visible through the high arches. When the front desk clerk smiled warmly and announced, "Welcome to the resort. I have 4-room keys ready for the family," Chloe reached out and took the entire golden key packet directly from his hands. She turned to me with a sharp, calculated smile that I knew all too well from my childhood. "Don't bother stepping up, Sophie," Chloe said, her voice carrying across the quiet lobby. "We reserved 2 luxury suites. One for mom and dad and one for me, Greg, and the baby. We're the real family unit here. You didn't expect us to pay for an extra room for a single woman, did you? You can just find some cheap motel down the highway." I froze, looking over at my parents, expecting them to step in, to scold her, to say something. But my father just looked away, suddenly fascinated by a display of tropical orchids, while my mother smoothed her dress and cleared her throat in silence. They had let Chloe make the rules again, completely writing me out of the trip before we even crossed the threshold. I didn't give Chloe the satisfaction of seeing me cry, nor did I cause a scene that would make me look pathetic in front of the resort staff. I simply nodded, grabbed the handles of my 2 heavy suitcases, and turned on my heel. As the glass doors glided open, the humid coastal air hit my face, but inside, I felt an icy clarity take over. They truly believed I would stand on the hot curb, panic, and come crawling back to beg for a spot on the living room sofa in their suite. They had no idea who they were dealing with anymore. Walking down the palm-lined driveway, I pulled out my phone and tapped open a private booking app. 5 minutes later, a sleek black town car pulled up to the curb. I had the driver take me 2 miles down the coast to the Azure Cove Villas, an exclusive, adult-only boutique resort far more luxurious than the crowded place my family was staying at. I checked into a private oceanfront bungalow with a personal plunge pool, using my secondary card. Once inside the air-conditioned sanctuary of my villa, I set my main phone down on the nightstand. Within minutes, it began to buzz continuously. First came 3 calls from my mother, followed by a barrage of text messages from Chloe. "Sophie, stop throwing a drama queen tantrum. Where are you? Dad needs you to handle the resort incidentals pre-authorization." I stared at the flashing screen for a split second, felt a quiet smile touch my lips, and reached out to press the power button. The screen went black. Let them figure it out on their own. Unpacking my clothes into the custom teak closet of my villa, the sting of their disrespect began to dissolve into a cold, hard realization. This wasn't just about a missed hotel room. It was the culmination of 10 years of being treated like an ATM with no feelings. When I was 25, my father's logistics firm had been on the brink of complete collapse. I had worked 2 jobs, sacrificed my personal life, and emptied my entire personal savings, over $60,000, to keep his payroll from bouncing. 2 years after that, when Chloe racked up massive credit card debts trying to maintain an influencer lifestyle she couldn't afford, who bailed her out so she wouldn't face legal action? I did. My parents had praised me back then, calling me the anchor of the family. But as soon as the financial fires were put out and Chloe married Greg, a guy from a well-off local family, the dynamic shifted entirely. Suddenly, Chloe was the golden child who had achieved the dream, while I was just the single, workaholic daughter whose only purpose was to be available whenever someone needed a check written. They genuinely believed my generosity was an obligation, a permanent subscription to their lifestyle that required no gratitude in return. They thought I would always swallow my pride, forgive their cruelty, and hand over my wallet whenever they snapped their fingers. Standing on my private terrace, looking out over the crashing waves of the Pacific, I knew that version of Sophie was dead. The subscription was officially canceled. While I was enjoying a quiet dinner of fresh grilled sea bass on my private terrace, absolute chaos was unfolding at the main resort. What my family hadn't realized in their rush to humiliate me was how the reservation had actually been structured. 3 weeks prior, I had personally arranged the booking through my corporate concierge account to secure a heavy discount and priority check-in. The reservation required a secondary corporate card to remain on file to cover the initial $5,000 incidentals deposit, room charges, and luxury resort dining package. When I sat down in my villa, the first thing I did after turning off my phone was log into my banking portal and flag that credit card as frozen due to unauthorized usage. Down at the main desk, my father had just finished treating Chloe, Greg, and my mother to an extravagant dinner at the resort's premium steakhouse. When the waiter brought over the heavy leather booklet with the multi-$100 check, my father casually signed his name and room number, assuming it would seamlessly bill to the MasterCard on file. 10 minutes later, the assistant hotel manager approached their table alongside 2 security guards. The manager politely but firmly informed them that the primary credit card guaranteeing their entire stay, along with their rooms, had been frozen by the cardholder. My father's face drained of color as the manager explained that without a valid credit card to cover the $5,000 deposit and the dinner bill, they would be required to settle the balance immediately in cash or provide a new card on the spot. Chloe panicked, looking to Greg, whose personal card was promptly declined due to his own maxed-out credit limits. The smug entitlement that had filled the lobby hours earlier completely vanished, replaced by sheer embarrassment as they realized the cash cow was no longer funding their luxury fantasy. The rest of the trip passed in complete serenity for me, while my family scrambled to cover their expenses using emergency personal loans and maxing out what little credit they had left. When the vacation finally ended, they returned home angry, embarrassed, and desperate to shift the blame. Over the next 3 weeks, Chloe attempted to launch a full-scale smear campaign against me within our extended family. She sent group texts calling me selfish, childish, and bitter, claiming I had abandoned my aging parents in a foreign place over a simple misunderstanding. My mother left tearful voicemails begging me to apologize to Chloe for ruining the family harmony, while my father sent stern emails demanding I reimburse them for the out-of-pocket costs they incurred at the resort. I didn't reply to a single text, call, or email. I maintained total, absolute radio silence. They mistook my silence for shame. They thought I was hiding in my apartment, overwhelmed by guilt, and waiting for the right moment to come back and ask for forgiveness. But I wasn't moping, I was working. During those 21 days, I was in constant communication with my business attorney and senior financial advisors. I gathered every contract, every loan agreement, and every financial ledger from the past decade. For years, I had quietly protected my investments while my father and sister played with money they didn't truly own. While they were busy complaining about me to aunts and uncles, I was preparing the paperwork that would permanently alter the course of their lives. 3 weeks after that disastrous vacation, the storm I had quietly built finally made landfall. It was a Tuesday morning when a certified legal courier knocked on the front door of my parents' house, delivering a heavy yellow envelope that required a signature. Inside were formal legal notices addressed to my father, my mother, and Chloe. For the past 2 years, my family had been living under a grand illusion. When my father's business was struggling to survive back in 2024, he hadn't just taken a casual personal loan from me. He had signed a comprehensive debt restructuring agreement. To secure the $300,000 of capital I injected into his firm, he had placed both the family home and the commercial property where Chloe ran her boutique consulting agency into a private family trust. What he had conveniently forgotten, or perhaps chosen to ignore because he viewed me as a pushover, was the master clause of that trust agreement. The terms explicitly stated that if the business defaulted on its quarterly interest payments, or if I chose to execute my option as the sole primary trustee after 2 years, full management authority and ownership rights of those properties would convert entirely to me. 10 minutes after the courier left, my phone rang. This time, I picked up. My father's voice was trembling, completely devoid of his usual stern authority. "Sophie, what is this? It says here that the property titles have been transferred. It says we have 30 days to surrender management of the commercial space." "You didn't read the fine print 2 years ago, Dad," I replied, my tone completely icy and calm. "You assumed I would just let you use my money forever without accountability, just like you assumed I would tolerate being tossed into the street on your vacation." Within an hour, my father, mother, and Chloe rushed to my office downtown. Gone were the designer clothes and arrogant posturing. Chloe was practically in tears, realizing that her entire business operated out of a building I now legally owned and could lease to anyone I pleased. "Sophie, please," my mother sobbed, leaning across my desk. "We're your family. You can't take away Chloe's business and your father's home over a stupid hotel room." I looked at them from behind my desk, feeling no anger, only absolute clarity. "This isn't about a hotel room," I said softly. "This is about 10 years of you taking everything I have while treating me like garbage. You wanted to show me who the real family was. Well, now I'm showing you who actually owns it. I didn't throw my parents out into the street. I'm not a monster. But I did rewrite the terms of our relationship permanently. I placed the family home into a revocable life estate, meaning my parents can live there comfortably for the rest of their lives, but they can never sell, mortgage, or transfer the property to Chloe. As for my sister, I offered her a choice: pay full market rent for her commercial office space under a strict legal lease, or vacate the premises within 30 days. She signed the lease agreement the very next morning, her hands shaking as she realized her days of free rides were officially over. For the first time in my life, I felt completely free. I had stripped away the false family dynamic that kept me trapped in the role of an exploited benefactor. They finally saw me not as a quiet pushover, but as a woman who demands respect and protects her boundaries at all costs. Now, I want to turn this over to you. What would you have done if your family treated you like an outsider on a vacation you helped make possible? Did I go too far by enforcing the legal trust